They say a mother's love is unconditional, but nobody tells you what happens when your daughter's hatred becomes absolute. My name is Patricia. I'm 60 years old, and I'm about to tell you how my own flesh and blood tried to erase me from existence while stealing everything I'd ever built. If you think you've heard betrayal stories before, trust me, you haven't heard anything like this. What my daughter Sienna did wasn't just cruel. It was calculated, criminal, and so twisted that when I finally discovered the truth, I understood that mercy was never going to be an option. Before I tell you exactly how I made her pay for what she did, make sure you're subscribed to this channel because this story gets darker than you can possibly imagine. Hit that notification bell because the revenge I served was so cold, so perfectly executed that you'll want to hear every single detail. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. The text message was simple. Too simple. Mom, my graduation dinner is family only. You understand. I stared at those words on my phone screen for what felt like hours, sitting in my small apartment, the same apartment I'd moved into after Sienna convinced me to sell my house 3 years ago. She'd said it was too much for me to maintain alone. She'd said she was worried about me. She'd said a lot of things that I believed because she was my daughter, my only child, and I'd raised her by myself after her father walked out when she was 2. I raised her through poverty, through my 3 jobs, through every sacrifice a single mother makes when she loves her child more than her own comfort. I put her through private school by cleaning those same schools at night. I paid for her college by working double shifts at the hospital where I was a nurse. I gave her everything. And now she was telling me I wasn't family enough for her graduate school dinner. But here's what made my hands shake as I held that phone. I knew for a fact that her father was invited. Gerald, the man who abandoned us, who never sent a single birthday card, who pretended we didn't exist for 28 years. He was going to be there. I found out because his new wife posted about it on social media. A picture of a fancy dress with the caption, "So excited to celebrate Sienna's achievement tonight." Gerald is so proud of his daughter. His daughter. The daughter he'd never raised. The daughter whose diapers he'd never changed, whose tears he'd never wiped, whose report cards he'd never signed. I called Sienna immediately. "Why is your father invited when I'm not?" Her voice was cold, distant. "He's changed, Mom. He's been trying to reconnect, and I think it's important to give people second chances." Second chances? Sienna, he abandoned you. I was there. I was always there. You were there? Sure. But maybe that's the problem. You were always there. Hovering. Suffocating. I need space to build my own life. And that includes deciding who I want at my important events. The line went quiet for a moment. Then she continued. "Besides, Dad has been helping me with some things. Important things. He's more supportive of my future than you've ever been." "What are you talking about? I gave you everything. You gave me your version of everything, Mom. Your small dreams. Your limited vision. Dad understands ambition." She hung up. I sat there in my apartment, the apartment she'd convinced me to move into, and something felt wrong. Not just emotionally wrong. Practically wrong. I looked around at my space, suddenly seeing it differently. This wasn't the comfortable downsizing Sienna had described. This was a box. A tiny, expensive box in a building I couldn't really afford that somehow cost almost as much as my mortgage used to. Why had I sold my house again? I pulled out the papers from 3 years ago, the ones I'd signed when Sienna said she'd found a buyer who was offering above market value, that it was too good to pass up, that she'd help me invest the money wisely. My heart stopped when I saw the signature on the buying agreement. The house had been sold to SG Properties, LLC. Sienna's initials were SG Sienna Grant. My daughter had bought my house from me. I grabbed my laptop with shaking hands and started searching property records. What I found made me physically ill. Sienna didn't live in the apartment she told me she was renting. She lived in my house. My house. The one with the garden I'd planted, the porch I'd painted every summer, the kitchen where I'd made her every birthday cake she'd ever had. She'd been living there for 3 years while charging me rent in this cramped apartment. But it got worse. So much worse. I started pulling bank statements, investment accounts, everything. Sienna had convinced me to let her manage my finances 2 years ago. She worked in finance, she'd said. She could get me better returns, she'd said. I'd trusted her because she was my daughter. $50,000 was missing from my retirement account. Then I found the insurance papers. Sienna had taken out a life insurance policy on me. $500,000. I was the insured. She was the beneficiary. I'd signed it during what I thought was a routine update to my health coverage. I hadn't updated my health coverage. I'd signed my own death warrant, and my daughter was waiting to collect. That's when I stopped being a mother. That's when I became something else entirely. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sienna's face, heard her voice telling me I was suffocating, remembered every sacrifice I'd made that she just called limited vision. But more than hurt, I felt clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. My daughter hadn't just excluded me from her dinner. She'd been systematically destroying my life, taking everything I owned, and apparently betting on my death to complete her financial plan. The question wasn't why anymore. The question was what I was going to do about it. I got dressed at 5 a.m. Black pants, dark sweater, comfortable shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. 60 years old, still strong from decades of nursing work, still sharp from years of having to be both mother and father, still very much alive, despite what my daughter might be hoping for. I had a plan forming, not the kind of plan that involved lawyers or police reports. Those things took time, required proof, depended on systems that moved slowly. No, what I needed was something immediate, something that would hurt her the way she'd hurt me, but worse. I needed to know everything first. I drove to my old house just as the sun was coming up. My house. The one I'd bought with my own money, my own sweat, 30 years ago when Sienna was just born. The small brick house with the blue shutters I'd installed myself. It looked different now. Sienna had painted the shutters gray, changed the mailbox, added expensive landscaping that probably cost more than I used to spend on groceries in a year. I sat in my car across the street and watched. At 7:15, Sienna came out the front door. My front door. She was wearing a designer suit that probably cost $3,000, carrying a bag I recognized from a luxury store downtown. She got into a BMW I'd never seen before. Everything about her screamed money. Money that used to be mine. She drove away, and I waited 20 minutes before approaching the house. I still had my old key. I'd never thought to ask for it back when I sold the house because I'd thought it was going to strangers. I'd actually cried the day I handed over the keys at closing, and Sienna had hugged me and told me it was for the best. The key still worked. I stepped into my old house and felt rage so pure it nearly knocked me over. She changed everything. The walls I'd painted were now trendy gray. The carpet I'd saved for months to install was gone, replaced with hardwood. My furniture, the pieces I'd told her I was putting in storage, was nowhere to be seen. Instead, everything was modern, expensive, cold. I walked through each room, documenting everything with my phone. Then I found her office. That's where I hit gold. Sienna was meticulous with her records. Too meticulous. Her file cabinet was organized with labels: property, investments, insurance, mother. The mother file was thick. I opened it and started reading. With each page, The picture became clearer and so much sicker than I'd imagined. This hadn't started 3 years ago. This had started 7 years ago, right after Sienna graduated from college. There were notes in her handwriting, plans, timelines. She'd been documenting my health, my habits, what she called my asset value. One note read, "Mother's house appraisal came in at $280,000. Nursing pension worth approximately $300,000. Retirement accounts total $75,000. Life insurance potential $500,000. Total value $1.15 million. I wasn't her mother in these notes. I was a portfolio. There was more. Correspondence with Gerald, her father. He'd reached out to her 5 years ago, not out of guilt or love, but because he'd heard through mutual acquaintances that I owned property. The messages between them were businesslike, strategic. "Gerald, your mother always was a saver. She's sitting on assets she doesn't even appreciate. Sienna, I'm working on it. She trusts me completely. It's just a matter of time." They'd planned this together, father and daughter, reunited not by love but by greed. But the worst was yet to come. I found medical records. My medical records. Sienna had been collecting them, and there were notes from a doctor I'd never seen. Consultations about medications, dosages, interactions. My hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the papers. She wasn't just waiting for me to die naturally. There was a bottle in her desk drawer, prescription medication in my name, but I'd never taken it. The label said it was for blood pressure, but when I looked it up on my phone, I found out it was something else entirely. Something that, when combined with my actual medications, could cause serious complications. Had she been trying to poison me? I thought back to the last 6 months. The times I'd felt dizzy after eating dinner at her apartment. The one time she'd insisted I stay over. The headaches I'd attributed to stress. The nausea I'd blamed on getting older. My daughter had been slowly killing me. I took pictures of everything. Every document, every note, every piece of evidence. Then I carefully put everything back exactly as I'd found it. I had what I needed. Now I needed to decide how to use it. I left my old house and drove straight to a coffee shop 3 towns over, somewhere Sienna would never go. I needed to think, and I needed to plan, but most importantly, I needed to become someone my daughter wouldn't recognize. The Patricia who had raised her with patience and sacrifice was gone. The new Patricia understood something fundamental. When someone shows you they see you as nothing more than a number on a balance sheet, you don't appeal to their conscience. You destroy their calculations. I ordered coffee and opened my laptop. First, I created a new email address, something completely unconnected to my usual accounts. Then I started researching. Sienna worked at Hartman Financial Group, a prestigious investment firm where she'd been employed for 6 years. According to her company bio, which I found easily enough online, she managed high-net-worth client portfolios and specialized in estate planning. Estate planning. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so vicious. I dug deeper into her professional life, found her colleagues' names, her boss's information, the company's ethics hotline. Then I searched for Gerald. He'd done well for himself, apparently. Remarried to a woman named Crystal, living in a suburb 2 hours away, working as a regional sales director for a pharmaceutical company. His social media was full of pictures from vacations, restaurants, golf courses. A comfortable life built while his daughter and I had struggled. But what caught my attention was a post from 4 months ago. Gerald at a company awards dinner, celebrating his team's success. The location tag showed the same upscale restaurant where Sienna's graduation dinner was being held tonight. They were closer than I'd thought. Much closer. I made a list in my notebook, old school, nothing digital that could be traced. 1. Sienna's professional reputation. 2. Gerald's marriage. 3. The life insurance policy. 4. My house. 5. My money. 6. The attempted poisoning. Each item was a pressure point. Each one could be exploited, but I needed to be smart about the order and the execution. I spent the next 3 hours building false email accounts, creating fake social media profiles, and constructing the digital infrastructure for what I was about to do. By the time I finished my third cup of coffee, I had everything I needed to begin. My phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor at the apartment complex, Mrs. Anderson. Patricia, there was a man here earlier asking questions about you. Said he was from your insurance company. Wanted to verify some information. Seemed odd, so I didn't tell him anything. Just thought you should know. Insurance company. Right. More likely someone Sienna sent to check on me, maybe to verify I was taking the medication she'd been trying to give me. I texted back. Thank you so much. I'll handle it. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going back to that apartment. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Instead, I checked into a motel, paid cash, and used a fake name. I needed to be a ghost for a while. From my motel room, I started phase 1. I logged into my actual bank accounts, the ones Sienna thought she was managing for me. She'd set herself up with access, supposedly to help me, but really to control everything. I started moving money. Not all of it. That would alert her immediately. Just enough to new accounts she didn't know about. Accounts in banks she'd never think to check. By midnight, I'd moved $30,000 into 3 different accounts. All in my name only, all with new passwords she couldn't guess. Then I did something that felt dangerous but necessary. I called the insurance company about the life insurance policy she'd taken out on me. Hi, this is Patricia Grant. I have a policy with you. Number. I read off the number from the documents I'd photographed. I need to make a change to my beneficiary. The representative was helpful. Of course, Ms. Grant. Who would you like to change it to? I'd like to remove the current beneficiary and name myself as the beneficiary. There was a pause. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you can't be the beneficiary of your own life insurance policy. It has to be someone else. I smiled. Then I'd like to cancel the policy entirely. May I ask why? Personal reasons. How quickly can this be done? I can process the cancellation today. You'll receive confirmation within 48 hours. Perfect. And just to be clear, the person currently listed as beneficiary will be notified. Yes, standard procedure is to notify all parties when a policy is canceled. Excellent. Please proceed. I hung up and waited. Sienna would find out within 2 days that her $500,000 insurance plan had just evaporated. I wanted to see what she'd do, how she'd react, whether she'd call me or just get more desperate. The next morning, I drove to a storage facility and rented a unit under my new fake name. I'd need a place to keep evidence, documents, things I might collect along the way. Then I went shopping. Burner phones. 3 of them. A small camera. USB drives. A voice recorder. Basic supplies for basic surveillance. I was 60 years old, buying spy equipment at an electronics store, and I'd never felt more focused in my entire life. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I got my hair cut and colored, changed my style completely, went from the practical short gray I'd worn forever to a darker color, longer, softer. I bought new clothes, nothing like my usual style. If I was going to follow my daughter, investigate her life, I needed to look like someone she wouldn't recognize at a glance. The woman in the mirror looked 10 years younger, and absolutely nothing like anyone's mother. I wasn't invited to Sienna's graduation dinner, but that didn't mean I wasn't going to attend. The restaurant was called Augustine's, one of those places with a dress code and a wine list thicker than a phone book. I'd made a reservation under a fake name, requested a table in the back corner, and arrived 30 minutes before Sienna's party was scheduled to begin. I wore a navy dress I'd just bought, elegant but unremarkable, and I'd paired it with glasses I didn't need. My new haircut and color did the rest. When I walked past the hostess stand, confident and calm, nobody gave me a second look. My table had a perfect view of the private dining room where Sienna's party would be. I ordered an expensive glass of wine I had no intention of drinking and waited. They arrived exactly on time. Sienna came in first, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She was laughing, radiant, playing the role of successful graduate student perfectly. Behind her came Gerald. I'd seen pictures, but seeing him in person after 28 years hit differently. He'd aged well, the way men do when they have no stress, no responsibilities, no children to raise alone. Silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of easy smile that comes from a life without consequences. With him was Crystal, his wife. She looked pleasant enough, completely unaware that her husband had reconnected with his daughter primarily to rob his ex-partner blind. Then came the others, Sienna's friends from graduate school, people I'd heard about but never met because apparently I wasn't important enough to introduce. And more interesting, several people I recognized from my research as her colleagues from Hartman Financial Group. One man in particular caught my attention, James Hartman himself, her boss, the founder of the company. He was at my daughter's graduation dinner. That meant she was more important at that firm than I'd realized, or she was sleeping with him, or both. I watched them settle in, watched the waiters bring champagne, watched everyone toast to Sienna's success. My daughter beamed, accepted congratulations, hugged her father like he'd been there all along. Nobody mentioned me. Not once. It was like I'd never existed. I took out my phone and started recording just audio hidden in my purse. I didn't know if I'd need it, but I was learning to collect everything. The dinner went on for hours. I ate slowly, ordered appetizers I didn't want, kept my face angled away from their room, but my attention focused entirely on them. About an hour in, Gerald stood up to make a toast. I know I haven't been in Sienna's life the way I should have been, he said, his voice carrying that practiced sincerity of a career salesman. But I'm so grateful we've had these past few years to reconnect. Sienna, you've grown into a remarkable woman, and I'm proud to call you my daughter. Everyone applauded. Sienna wiped away a tear. I wanted to throw my wine glass through the window, but I stayed calm, stayed focused, because Gerald wasn't done talking. And I want everyone here to know that Sienna and I have been working on something special together. A business venture that's going to change both our lives. With her financial expertise and my industry connections, we're going to build something incredible. A business venture. Using my money, undoubtedly. Money stolen from my accounts, from my house sale, from everything I'd worked for. Sienna stood up then, touched her father's arm affectionately. Dad has been such an inspiration. He's taught me that sometimes you have to make hard choices, cut ties with people who hold you back in order to reach your full potential. People who hold you back. She meant me. My mother, Sienna continued, and my entire body tensed. My mother was a good woman, but she never understood ambition. She was content with small dreams, a small life. She wanted the same for me, but my father helped me see that I deserved more. She said was, like I was already gone. I gripped my fork so hard my knuckles went bone dry. James Hartman spoke up then. Sienna, your mother didn't come tonight? No, Sienna said smoothly. We've grown apart. Different values, different goals. It was better this way. Better. She'd stolen my house, my money, possibly tried to poison me, and it was better this way. I pulled out one of my burner phones and started texting. Not to anyone, just notes to myself. Observations. Quotes. Evidence. The dinner continued. More wine, more toasts, more of my daughter accepting praise for achievements built on my sacrifices while pretending I'd been nothing but an obstacle. Then something interesting happened. Crystal, Gerald's wife, excused herself to use the restroom. I waited 30 seconds and followed. The bathroom was empty except for the two of us. She was touching up her makeup when I walked in. Our eyes met in the mirror. Beautiful dinner, I said casually. Yes, she smiled. My stepdaughter's graduation. Very proud moment. You must be close to her. Crystal's smile faltered just slightly. We're getting there. It's been an adjustment. Gerald reconnected with Sienna a few years ago, and honestly, it's been wonderful for him. But sometimes I feel like there's this whole part of his life I don't really understand. How do you mean? She looked at me, and I could see she was debating whether to confide in a stranger. The wine made the decision for her. They have all these private meetings. Business discussions they say I wouldn't understand. And Gerald's been spending money, investment money, into their venture. He says it's going to pay off huge, but he won't tell me the details. Says it's complicated. That must be difficult. Sometimes I wonder if reconnecting with his daughter was really about family or about something else entirely. She laughed, embarrassed. Sorry, I shouldn't be telling a stranger this. Sometimes strangers are the easiest people to talk to. I said gently, we don't have stakes in your life. She nodded, finished with her makeup. You're right. Anyway, I should get back. She left, and I stayed for a moment, thinking. Crystal didn't know what Gerald and Sienna were really doing. She was another victim, just less aware of it. I could use that. I didn't go back to my motel that night. Instead, I sat in my car outside Augustine's and waited for the dinner to end. Around 11, the party finally broke up. I watched them say their goodbyes, watched Sienna hug her father, watched Gerald and Crystal get into their luxury sedan. Then I followed them. Gerald and Crystal lived in Westbrook Heights, a gated community 40 minutes outside the city. I couldn't get past the gate, but I didn't need to. I just needed to confirm the address, which I did. Then I drove back to my motel and started working. First, I created an anonymous email account. Then I drafted a message to Crystal, but not from me, from a concerned colleague of Gerald's. The email detailed Gerald's relationship with Sienna, but I framed it differently. I made it sound like an affair. Suspicious meetings, money changing hands, secret business ventures that Gerald was hiding from his wife. I included just enough real details, things Crystal herself had mentioned in the bathroom, mixed with implications that would make her imagination run wild. I didn't send it yet. I needed more ammunition first. Instead, I turned my attention to Sienna's workplace. Hartman Financial Group had strict ethics policies I'd learned from their website. Conflicts of interest were taken seriously. Misuse of client funds was grounds for immediate termination and potential criminal charges. I started building a file. Using the documents I'd photographed from Sienna's home office, I created a timeline of her financial manipulation. My house sale, the missing money from my retirement accounts, the insurance policy. I documented everything with dates, amounts, screenshots. Then I did something clever. I cross-referenced the dates when money disappeared from my accounts with Sienna's work calendar, which she kept synced to a cloud service I still had access to from when she'd set up my phone 2 years ago. Every single transfer of my money corresponded with days she'd been at work during business hours. She'd been stealing from me using her work computer, probably using company resources to do it. That was a fireable offense at minimum, possibly criminal. But I still wasn't ready to pull that trigger. I needed everything to fall apart simultaneously, not piece by piece. Because if I went after her job first, she'd have time to cover her tracks elsewhere. No, I needed her to lose everything at once. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. I requested copies of all property transactions involving my old house. The clerk was helpful, pulled up the records, and that's when I found something beautiful. When Sienna bought my house through her LLC, she'd financed part of it, taken out a mortgage in the company's name. But the down payment, $200,000, had come from somewhere. I traced it through the public records, following the money trail. The down payment came from an account that was connected to Hartman Financial Group's investment pool. Sienna had borrowed from client funds to buy my house. That wasn't just unethical. That was embezzlement. I made copies of everything, paid the fees, and left with a folder full of ammunition. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Ms. Grant. A woman's voice. Professional. This is Rebecca Chun from Lighthouse Insurance. I'm calling about the cancellation of your life insurance policy. Yes, I requested that cancellation. I understand, but I wanted to verify something. Our records show that the policy was taken out by Sienna Grant, who listed herself as your financial power of attorney. The cancellation request came from you directly. I just want to confirm that you're aware of what this means. Financial power of attorney. Sienna had given herself power of attorney over my finances without me knowing. When was this power of attorney established? I asked, keeping my voice steady. According to our records, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, right when she convinced me to sell the house. And what documents did you receive to verify this power of attorney? We have signed forms in our system. Would you like me to email you copies? Yes, please. I gave her my new email address and hung up. 10 minutes later, the documents arrived. I opened them and felt my stomach drop. The signature was mine, or it looked like mine. Close enough that an insurance company wouldn't question it. But I'd never signed these papers. I'd never given Sienna power of attorney. She'd forged my signature. That changed everything. This wasn't just financial manipulation anymore. This was fraud, identity theft, forgery, crimes that couldn't be explained away as misunderstandings or family disputes. I now had everything I needed to destroy her completely. The question was timing. My burner phone buzzed. I'd set up alerts for Sienna's name on social media. Someone had posted a photo from last night's dinner. I opened it and read the caption, "Celebrating with the amazing Sienna Grant. So proud to work with someone who's not just brilliant with money, but also has the courage to cut toxic people out of her life. Here's to success without dead weight." Dead weight. That's what I was to my daughter. I screenshotted the post, added it to my file. Then I made my decision. It was time to start destroying her life. I started with Crystal. The email I drafted went out at 6 a.m, time to arrive, while Gerald was probably in the shower or getting ready for work. Crystal would check her phone first, the way people do. The subject line read, "Information about your husband you need to know." The body was carefully worded, designed to plant seeds of doubt without making specific accusations that could be easily disproven. "Dear Crystal, I work with your husband Gerald and feel obligated to inform you of some concerning behavior. He's been having extensive private meetings with a young woman named Sienna Grant. They've been seen together frequently, meeting in hotels, restaurants, conducting financial transactions that involve significant sums of money. When asked about these meetings, Gerald has been evasive and secretive. The relationship appears to be more than professional. I thought you should know. A concerned friend." I didn't mention that Sienna was his daughter. Let Crystal discover that herself. Let her ask him about it. Let him try to explain why he'd been hiding his relationship with his daughter and their financial schemes. The truth would sound like a lie. The lie would create chaos. Phase 1 initiated. Next, I turned my attention to Hartman Financial Group. But I didn't contact them directly. Not yet. Instead, I created an anonymous tip using their ethics hotline, carefully worded to raise questions without making direct accusations. I have concerns about an employee named Sienna Grant. There appear to be irregularities in how she's handling certain accounts, including what may be personal financial transactions conducted during business hours using company resources. Additionally, there are questions about potential conflicts of interest involving family members and the use of client funds for personal investments. I believe this warrants investigation. Anonymous tips required investigation. Even if they led nowhere, they created scrutiny. And scrutiny was exactly what I needed. Phase 2 initiated. Then I did something that felt particularly satisfying. I went to see a lawyer. Not to sue, not to file charges, but to get advice on how to reclaim my house. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Victoria Santos, listened to my story with increasingly wide eyes. So, your daughter bought your house from you, but you didn't know you were selling it to her? Correct. She used an LLC. I thought it was going to a stranger. And she convinced you to sell under false pretenses. She said it was a great opportunity, that the buyer was paying above market value, that she'd help me invest the money. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Ms. Grant, what your daughter did is fraud. The power of attorney documents were forged, which is a felony. The life insurance policy taken out without your knowledge, also potentially criminal. The theft from your retirement accounts, definitely criminal. You don't need a civil lawyer. You need to go to the police. I don't want to go to the police. Why not? Because I want something the police can't give me. I want her to suffer the way she made me suffer. I want her to lose everything, feel everything crumble, know exactly who caused it. The police would arrest her, sure, but then what? She'd get a lawyer, maybe do some time, and she'd still have some version of a life. No. I want complete destruction. Victoria looked at me for a long moment. I can't help you with that. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you this. Legally, how do I get my house back? She thought about it. If you can prove the sale was fraudulent, you can sue to void the transaction. You'd need evidence of the forgery, the deception, everything. It would take time. I have evidence. Lots of it. How long would it take? Months, maybe a year. Courts move slowly. What if I don't want to wait that long? Victoria raised an eyebrow. What are you thinking? What if I just took it back? That would be illegal. You can't just move into a house that's not legally yours, even if you used to own it. Even if I still have a key? Especially if you still have a key, that's breaking and entering. I smiled. What if the current owner gave me permission? Then it wouldn't be breaking and entering. But why would your daughter give you permission to move back into the house she stole from you? She wouldn't, but she might not have a choice soon. I thanked Victoria for her time, paid her consultation fee, and left. I wasn't going to sue. I wasn't going to wait for courts. I had a better plan. That afternoon, I went back to my old house. Sienna's car wasn't there. She was at work. I let myself in with my key and started documenting everything again, but this time more thoroughly. I measured rooms, photographed every corner, documented every change she'd made to my property. Then I went into her office and copied every file, every document, every piece of paper. I spent 3 hours there, working methodically, making sure everything went back exactly as I'd found it. In her bedroom, I found something that made me pause. A journal. I almost didn't open it, some old motherly instinct about privacy. Then I remembered she tried to poison me, and I opened it. The entries were revealing. Sienna wrote about her plans, her frustrations, her justifications. Mom called again today. She still doesn't understand why I didn't invite her to the dinner. Good. The less she knows, the better. Gerald says we're almost ready to move forward with the business. Just need to wait for the insurance situation to resolve. Mom's health has been declining, which is unfortunate but also convenient. The policy should pay out within the year if trends continue. If trends continue, meaning if the poison continued working. Another entry. Sometimes I feel guilty about what we're doing. Then I remember how Mom always held me back, always preached about being practical, never encouraged real ambition. She made herself a victim her whole life. I refuse to be like her. If taking what she has helps me build what I deserve, then that's just evolution. I photographed every page. Then I put the journal back exactly where I'd found it. By the time I left the house, I had enough evidence to bury Sienna 10 times over. But I still wasn't done collecting. That evening, my burner phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I answered carefully. "Hello, is this Patricia Grant?" A man's voice, nervous. "Who's asking?" "My name is Tom Rivera. I work at Hartman Financial Group. I got your number from—" "Look, this is complicated. Can we meet?" "How did you get this number?" "I saw the ethics complaint that came in today. About Sienna Grant. I did some digging, found out about her mother, found your number. I need to talk to you. It's important. This was unexpected." "What about?" "Not on the phone. Please. There's a coffee shop on Market Street, Java House. Can you meet me there in an hour?" I considered it. Could be a trap. Could be Sienna trying to figure out what I knew. But my curiosity won. 1 hour, I said, and hung up. Tom Rivera was younger than I expected. Maybe 30, with the nervous energy of someone who'd discovered something they wished they hadn't. He was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived, a coffee cup clutched in both hands. I sat down across from him. "You have 1 minute to tell me why I shouldn't walk away right now." He spoke fast. "I'm an analyst at Hartman Financial Group. I work in compliance, which means I review accounts, look for irregularities, make sure everyone's following regulations. 3 months ago, I noticed something weird with Sienna Grant's activity. Transactions that didn't quite make sense, timing that seemed off. I flagged it to my supervisor. And I was told to drop it. Told that Sienna was a valued employee, that I was probably misreading the data, that I should focus on other accounts. But I didn't drop it. I kept digging on my own time." He pulled out a tablet, opened a file, and showed me spreadsheets. Numbers, dates, account codes. Sienna has been moving money between client accounts and personal investments in ways that aren't technically illegal, but are definitely unethical. She uses temporary transfers, borrows from one account to invest in another, pays it back before anyone notices. It works because she's good at timing and because she manages enough accounts that the movements look normal. Why are you telling me this? Because when I saw the ethics complaint today, it mentioned family members and personal investments. I cross-referenced the accounts Sienna has been manipulating with property records and found something. She bought a house 3 years ago with money that came from a client account. She paid it back eventually, but for 6 months, she was essentially using client funds as her personal bank. That's embezzlement. I looked at the spreadsheets. Why do you care? Tom met my eyes. Because my mother died last year. She had early onset dementia. Before she got really sick, she had a financial advisor who convinced her to make some investments that basically emptied her savings. The advisor was smooth, professional, trustworthy. By the time we realized what happened, it was too late. My mother died broke, and the advisor faced no consequences because technically everything was legal. You think Sienna is like that advisor? I think Sienna is worse. She doesn't just manipulate clients. She manipulates her own family. And when I found out that the house she bought with client funds was purchased from her own mother, I realized she's been running a scam on you too. What do you want from me? I want to take her down, but I need your help. The ethics complaint will trigger an internal investigation, but those can be buried. Hartman is protective of his top performers, and Sienna makes the firm a lot of money. If this is going to stick, I need external evidence, the kind that can't be ignored. I need your story, your documents, proof of what she did to you. I studied him. He seemed genuine, but I'd been fooled before. If I give you evidence, what happens? I take it to the state financial regulators, not just Hartman. I make sure this becomes an official investigation that the company can't sweep under the rug. Sienna loses her license, probably faces criminal charges, and definitely loses her job. And you get what out of this? Peace of mind. And maybe my supervisor loses his job too for trying to cover it up. I made a decision. I'll help you, but on my terms. I control the timing of when this information goes public. Why? Because I'm destroying more than just her career. I'm destroying everything. And it all has to happen at once. Tom looked uncertain. I just want her held accountable professionally. And she will be. But I need you to wait until I say go. Can you do that? He hesitated, then nodded. How long? 1 week. Maybe less. I'll know when the time is right. What are you planning? Better you don't know. I gave Tom copies of some of my evidence. Enough to keep him satisfied, but not everything. I needed to maintain control. We exchanged contact information, burner phone to burner phone, and agreed to stay in touch. As I left the coffee shop, I felt the pieces falling into place. Tom would handle the professional destruction. I would handle everything else. That night, I got a call on my regular phone. Sienna, Mom, we need to talk. My heart raced, but I kept my voice calm. About what? About the life insurance policy. I got a notice that it was canceled. What's going on? I canceled it. I didn't remember agreeing to it. And when I called the company, they couldn't explain why I needed such a large policy. So I canceled it. Silence on the other end. Then, that was a mistake, Mom. That policy was important. It was part of your financial planning. My financial planning? Sienna, you're the beneficiary. How is that my financial planning? It's complicated. Look, I need you to reinstate that policy. No, Mom, this isn't a request. You need to reinstate it. There are financial implications if you don't. What kind of implications? Just do it, okay? I'll explain later. Just call the insurance company tomorrow and reinstate the policy. And if I don't, her voice went cold, then we're going to have problems. Serious problems. I've been managing your money, your accounts, everything. If you start making unilateral decisions without consulting me, things could get very messy for you. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. I have power of attorney, Mom. I can freeze your accounts if I think you're making decisions that aren't in your best interest. Don't make me do that. You forged that power of attorney, Sienna. Sharp intake of breath. What are you talking about? I know what you did. I know about the house. I know about the money. I know everything. Long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was different. Harder. You don't know anything. And even if you think you do, you can't prove it. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to reinstate that insurance policy. You're going to stop asking questions, and you're going to stay out of my way. Because if you don't, I will make your life very difficult. You already tried to poison me, Sienna. How much more difficult could it get? I heard her breath catch. You're paranoid. You're old, you're confused, and you're making wild accusations. The medication you've been trying to give me, I had it tested. I know what it is and what it does when combined with my actual prescriptions. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. And soon, everyone else will too. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage, from satisfaction, from the knowledge that I'd just shown my cards deliberately. Sienna would panic now. Panic led to mistakes, and I was counting on it. Sienna's panic came faster than I expected. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls on my regular phone. All from her. I didn't call back. Instead, I got dressed, checked out of my motel, and drove to a bank I'd never used before. I closed my remaining accounts at the banks where Sienna had access, withdrew everything in cash, and opened new accounts in my name only. By noon, I'd moved every dollar she might have been able to touch. Then I went to the police. Not to file charges. Not yet. Just to make a report. I need to document something. I told the officer at the desk. My daughter has been forging documents in my name, including power of attorney paperwork. I want it on record that I never authorized this, and that any documents bearing my signature related to financial power of attorney are fraudulent. The officer took my statement, gave me a case number, and told me I could file formal charges if I wanted. Not yet, I said. I just need this documented for now. With that police report in hand, I went to every financial institution where Sienna had claimed power of attorney. I showed them the police report, showed them my identification, and revoked any access she'd had. By the end of the day, Sienna was locked out of everything. My accounts, my information, my life. My burner phone rang. Tom, you need to see this. He said, can you check your email? I opened my laptop, checked the new email account. Tom had sent me internal company communications from Hartman Financial Group. The ethics investigation into Sienna had officially begun. Her accounts were being frozen for review. Her access to client portfolios had been suspended pending the investigation. But more interesting was an email from James Hartman himself to his management team. The situation with Sienna Grant is serious. I want everyone to understand that if these allegations are confirmed, we will be dealing with not just an internal matter, but potential regulatory and criminal issues. Distance yourselves. Document everything. We need to protect the firm. Sienna was being abandoned by her own company. My regular phone rang again. Sienna, again. This time I answered. What did you do? She was screaming. What did you do to my accounts? To my job? I didn't do anything to your job, Sienna. I filed a police report about the forged power of attorney documents. I closed my own bank accounts. Everything else that's happening to you is consequence, not cause. You're destroying my life. No, I'm taking back mine. There's a difference. I will ruin you. I swear to God. I will. You'll what? Poison me more successfully this time? Take out another fraudulent insurance policy? Steal more of my money? You already did all of that. The only difference now is that people know. Nobody knows anything. You can't prove. I have copies of everything, Sienna. Every document from your office. Your journal. The medication you tried to give me. Bank records. Property records. The forged power of attorney. All of it. And soon. So will the police, the state regulators, and your employer. She was crying now. Please. Mom, please. You don't understand. I needed that money. I had debts, obligations. Gerald and we had a plan. We were going to... Let me guess. You were going to wait for me to die, collect the insurance money, sell my house for a profit, and start your business with Gerald, the daughter and father reunited, building an empire on the bones of the woman who actually raised you. It wasn't like that. Yes, it was. And now it's over. I'm your daughter. How can you do this to me? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. How can I do this to you? Sienna, you tried to kill me. You stole my house. You embezzled my retirement savings. You forged legal documents in my name. And you ask how I can do this to you. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can work this out. Please just stop. Stop whatever you're doing and let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. What do you want? Money? I'll pay you back. The house? You can have it. Just make this stop. I don't want anything from you. I want you to feel exactly what you made me feel. Helpless, betrayed, erased, and we're just getting started. I hung up. That evening, I drove to Westbrook Heights. I couldn't get through the gate, but I didn't need to. I just needed to wait. Around 7, Gerald's car pulled up to the gate entrance. He lowered his window to punch in the code. I pulled up behind him, got out of my car, and walked to his window. His face when he saw me was priceless. Shock, fear, confusion, all in rapid succession. Patricia. Hello, Gerald. We need to talk. I don't have anything to say to you. That's fine. You can listen. I know about your arrangement with Sienna. I know about the money, the business plan, all of it. And I want you to know that I'm going to take everything from her. And since you're part of it, I'm going to take everything from you too. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. I have documentation of every conversation between you and Sienna about your scheme, including the parts where you discussed waiting for me to die. How do you think Crystal would feel about that? His jaw tightened. Stay away from my wife. Too late. I already sent her some interesting information. Anonymous, of course, but enough to make her very curious about your relationship with Sienna. I imagine you've been having some uncomfortable conversations at home. I was bluffing about Crystal having received anything yet, but his reaction told me I'd hit a nerve. What do you want? I want you to tell me why. Why come back after 28 years? Why help Sienna destroy me? He looked away. You wouldn't understand. Try me. I heard you own property. I heard Sienna was successful. I thought maybe I could be part of something. Build something with my daughter. Build something on the foundation of stealing from me. You always were so self-righteous, Patricia, so convinced you were the victim. Maybe if you'd been different, had more ambition, more vision, I wouldn't have left. You left because you were a coward who didn't want responsibility. Don't rewrite history. Believe what you want. But Sienna is my daughter, and I'm not going to let you destroy her. You already destroyed her by teaching her that using people is acceptable. That betrayal is just business. You're a terrible father, Gerald. You always were. I got back in my car and drove away, leaving him at the gate. The bluff about Crystal would become reality soon enough. I'd send the email tonight. Back at my new motel room, I opened my laptop and composed the second email to Crystal. This one was more direct. Crystal, you may have received information about your husband and Sienna Grant. I want to clarify. Sienna is Gerald's daughter from a previous relationship. They reconnected 5 years ago, not out of family bonds, but to execute a financial scheme against Sienna's mother. They planned to steal her assets, wait for her death via suspicious means, and use insurance money to fund a business venture together. I have proof of all of this. Your husband is not having an affair. He's doing something worse. He's conspiring to commit fraud and possibly murder. Check his phone records. Check his bank accounts. The truth is all there. And ask yourself, if he could do this to the mother of his child, what makes you think you're safe? I hit send. Then I called Tom. It's time, I said. Release everything to the regulators tomorrow morning. Make sure it's official, documented, impossible to ignore. Are you sure? Completely. Sienna's life needs to fall apart all at once. Tomorrow is the day. What are you going to do? Something I should have done weeks ago. I'm taking back my house. I drove to my house at midnight. Sienna's car was in the driveway. Lights were on inside. She was home, probably panicking, probably trying to figure out how to save herself. I parked down the street and waited. Around 2 a.m, the lights finally went out. I gave it another hour. Then I used my key and let myself in. The house was quiet. I knew where Sienna's bedroom was the master bedroom that used to be mine. I walked past it, went to the kitchen, and made myself coffee. Then I sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table that she'd replaced with some modern thing that cost probably $2,000, and I waited for morning. Around 7, I heard footsteps upstairs. Shower running. Sienna getting ready for a day that was about to become much worse. She came downstairs 30 minutes later, dressed for work even though she probably didn't have a job anymore. She walked into the kitchen and froze when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" "Sitting in my house, drinking coffee." "This isn't your house." "Actually, it is. Or it will be again very soon." The sale was fraudulent, Sienna, based on forged documents and deception. That makes it void. Get out or I'm calling the police. Go ahead. Call them. Explain to them how you bought your mother's house without her knowing, using money embezzled from client accounts based on forged power of attorney documents. I'm sure that conversation will go great for you. She pulled out her phone, but her hands were shaking too badly to dial. "Your job is gone," I said calmly. "The state regulators received a full report this morning documenting your embezzlement, your fraud, your ethics violations. Hartman Financial Group is going to terminate you before lunch to protect themselves. Your professional license will be revoked. You'll never work in finance again." "You can't know that." "I do know that, because I made it happen." She sat down heavily in one of her expensive chairs. "Why are you doing this? You tried to kill me, Sienna. You stole everything I had. You erased me from your life while literally living in my house. And you ask why I'm doing this. I'm your daughter." "No, you stopped being my daughter when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. Now you're just someone who made a very big mistake. What do you want? What will it take for you to stop?" "Nothing. There's nothing you can give me that will stop this. I'm taking back my house. I'm taking back my money. And I'm watching you lose everything else." My phone rang. "Tom." "It's done," he said. "The report is filed. Hartman Financial Group just issued a statement suspending Sienna Grant pending investigation. The state licensing board has opened a formal inquiry." "Thank you, Tom." I hung up and looked at Sienna. That was confirmation. "You're officially unemployed." She started crying. Real tears this time, not manipulative ones. "I'm ruined. Everything I built is gone." "Everything you stole is gone," I corrected. "Everything you actually built on your own, if anything, you can keep." "I have nothing. No job, no money, no—" "Welcome to how I felt when I discovered what you'd done to me. Except I'm 60 years old and you stole my retirement. You're 30. You can rebuild. I gave you that chance. You threw it away." She looked up at me with red eyes. "I hate you." "I know, but I don't care anymore." There was a knock at the door. Sienna and I both froze. "Expecting someone?" I asked. She shook her head. I got up and answered the door. 2 police officers stood on the porch. "We're looking for Sienna Grant." One of them said, "She's here." I stepped aside. Sienna stood in the kitchen doorway, looking terrified. "What's this about?" "Ma'am, we have a warrant for your arrest. Charges include fraud, embezzlement, forgery, and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent." I watched them read her rights, watched them handcuff my daughter in my kitchen. She looked at me as they let her out. "Mom, please, help me." I said nothing. After they left, I sat back down at the kitchen table and finished my coffee. Then I called a locksmith. "I need all the locks changed on my house," I said. "Today if possible. We can have someone there in 2 hours." "Perfect." While I waited, I went through the house room by room. Everything Sienna had brought in, all her furniture, her decorations, her expensive taste, I piled it in the garage. She could deal with it later. From jail, probably. Then I started moving my old furniture back in from the storage unit I'd kept it in. The pieces she'd told me weren't worth keeping, that I should donate or throw away. I'd kept them anyway, some instinct telling me not to trust her completely. By the end of the day, my house looked like my house again. The walls were still gray instead of the warm colors I'd painted them, but that could be fixed. The important thing was that I was home. Gerald called that evening. "What have you done?" "I've taken back what was mine, and I've made sure Sienna faces consequences for her actions. She's my daughter. You had no right. She's the daughter you abandoned. Don't pretend to care now. And Gerald, I sent Crystal everything. Every text message between you and Sienna about your scheme. Every bank record. Every plan you made. Your marriage is over. Your investment in Sienna's future is gone. You lose too. You're a monster. No, I'm a mother who refused to die quietly for your convenience." I hung up. 3 months later, I sat on my porch, the one I painted myself years ago, watching the sun set over the garden I'd replanted. The legal proceedings had moved faster than I expected. Sienna pleaded guilty to multiple felony charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 5 years in prison, followed by probation. Her finance license was permanently revoked. She'd lost everything. Gerald's marriage ended exactly as I'd predicted. Crystal divorced him, took half of everything in the settlement. He tried to reach out to me once, asking if we could talk. I never responded. Tom Rivera got promoted at Hartman Financial Group after his role in exposing the fraud became known. He called me occasionally, checking in, making sure I was okay. The house was mine again, legally and officially. The court had voided the fraudulent sale, and Sienna's LLC had been dissolved. Every dollar she'd stolen from my retirement accounts was being returned through restitution payments she'd be making for the rest of her life. But the money wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that I'd reclaimed myself, not just my property or my finances, but my dignity, my power, my right to exist without being erased by someone I'd sacrificed everything for. People ask me sometimes if I felt guilty, if I regretted what I'd done to my own daughter. The answer was simple. No. Sienna had made choices. She'd chosen greed over love. She'd chosen to see me as an obstacle instead of a person. She'd chosen to try to kill me rather than simply live her own life. I'd simply chosen not to die. There's a difference between revenge and justice. People say, maybe they're right. But when the system is too slow, when the betrayal is too deep, when your own daughter literally tries to poison you, sometimes you have to become both judge and executioner. I didn't create a foundation in my name. I didn't go on television to tell my story. I didn't write a book or start a podcast about financial abuse. I just lived. I went back to work part-time at the hospital because I missed nursing and because I could. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during the years I was too busy raising Sienna alone. I traveled for the first time in decades, saw places I'd always wanted to see. And every single day, I woke up in my house, made coffee in my kitchen, and felt grateful that I'd had the strength to fight back. Some people say you can't choose your family, that blood is thicker than water, that you should always forgive your children. Those people have never been systematically robbed, poisoned, and erased by the person they raised. I chose differently. I chose myself. And if Sienna ever gets out of prison, if she ever tries to contact me again, she'll find that the mother she knew is gone. In her place is a woman who learned that survival sometimes requires ruthlessness, that love without respect is worthless, and that the best revenge isn't about destruction. It's about rebuilding everything they tried to take stronger than before and never looking back. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, or if you believe that some betrayals deserve consequences without mercy, then subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that like button if you believe Patricia made the right choice. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in her situation, because I guarantee the stories in your own lives are just as intense as this one. And most importantly, share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to put yourself first, even when family tells you otherwise. The next story is already in the works, and trust me, it's going to shake you just as hard as this one did. I'll see you in the next video, but until then, remember, never let anyone make you feel guilty for refusing to be a victim. Not even your own daughter.